Section 1. The Paradox of Awakening. Why isolation becomes peace. There comes a moment on every soul's journey when the noise of the world becomes unbearable. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. Alan Watts once said, "Muddy water is best cleared by leaving it alone." When you awaken, you start to see how much of human life is just stirred-up water. People splashing their fears, their projections, their endless noise into the quiet pool of existence. And so, without warning, the spiritually awake begin to withdraw. They stop answering calls that once felt important, stop meeting people who once drained their energy, and stop entertaining conversations that never led anywhere. It's not arrogance, it's clarity. Awakening makes you allergic to falseness. You start feeling the hidden motives behind people's friendliness, the insecurity behind their smiles, the control behind their concern. You begin to see that most visitors don't come to connect. They come to escape themselves. They seek comfort in your calm, distraction from their emptiness, validation from your peace. But when you've touched silence, real silence, you can't return to that chaos. You realize that every visitor carries not just their body, but their energy, their inner storms, their unspoken fears, and the spiritually awake feel it all. This is where dark psychology meets spiritual awareness, understanding that most people feed energetically. Some drain through gossip, some through negativity, some through endless talking that goes nowhere. They don't mean harm. It's unconscious. They've never learned to be still, so they visit you hoping to borrow your stillness. But if you let them, they'll slowly empty your reservoir. That's why the awakened withdraw. They aren't antisocial, they're simply guarding the sacred. Solitude, for them, is no longer a punishment. It's the new paradise. The awakened mind learns that silence is not emptiness. It's space. Space to think, to feel, to listen to the whispers of truth that can only be heard when the world stops shouting. Alan Watts said that enlightenment isn't about becoming divine. It's about becoming real. And to become real, you must step away from everything artificial. The paradox of awakening is that the more connected you become to existence, the fewer connections you maintain with people. You stop needing company because you start living in communion with the universe itself. You stop chasing conversation because you begin to hear the dialogue between your soul and eternity. The spiritually awake don't dislike visitors because they're cold. They dislike them because visitors break the sacred rhythm of inner peace. And here's where motivation turns inward. The more you honor your silence, the more powerful your presence becomes. Success, clarity, peace, all are born from isolation. You can't become your highest self while entertaining every knock at your door. The world will call you distant, detached, mysterious, but only because they no longer understand what peace feels like. So if you've been feeling the need to be alone lately, don't fight it. That's not loneliness, it's alignment. It's your soul asking for space to expand. It's your consciousness detoxing from all the noise. Before we move to the next section, the energy of presence, what visitors really bring into your space, I want you to pause and reflect. If this message resonates, like this video and comment your own original quote about solitude and strength. Something powerful, maybe like, "I'm not avoiding people, I'm protecting my peace." Section 2. The energy of presence. What visitors really bring into your space. Every human being carries a field of energy, unseen yet powerfully felt. When someone enters your home, your space, or even your mind through conversation, they don't come alone. They bring their thoughts, their emotions, their chaos, their desires, and the spiritually awake, those who have tuned their frequency to stillness, feel it instantly. What the world calls intuition is simply sensitivity sharpened by awareness. The awakened can sense when someone's presence shifts the air, when the energy becomes heavy, or when peace begins to leak out of the room. Alan Watts once described life as a dance of energies, not fixed things, but vibrations in constant motion. And when you awaken, you begin to sense that dance. Some people move with grace, others crash into your rhythm. The spiritually asleep don't realize this. They live entangled in noise, unaware that their energy spills everywhere. But the awakened notice. They notice the subtle tension when someone enters talking too loudly, the restlessness in someone scrolling through their phone, the invisible pull of attention that drains their calm. This is why visitors become difficult for the awakened. It's not about the person, it's about the frequency. A person's energy reveals their level of consciousness. Those filled with anxiety, gossip, or envy carry vibrations that clash with the stillness of an awakened mind. You might not even speak, yet you feel your peace trembling. That's energy exchange, the unseen psychology of presence. In dark psychology, there's a concept called emotional contagion, the idea that moods and mindsets spread through invisible resonance. When someone enters your space with tension, that tension seeps into your field. And the more awake you become, the more your body rejects it. You'll find yourself suddenly tired, uneasy, or mentally cloudy after being around certain people. That's not overthinking. That's your soul saying, "This frequency is not aligned with mine." The spiritually awake become protective not out of ego, but out of necessity. They understand that energy is currency, and they refuse to spend it on meaningless interaction. This is also a success strategy, because every moment of misplaced attention is stolen potential. Energy wasted on explaining, debating, or managing others' emotions is energy that could have gone into creation, vision, mastery. That's why isolation often precedes greatness. Every sage, artist, and thinker withdrew, not from hate, but from preservation. Alan Watts taught that to awaken is to stop identifying with the storm and realize you are the sky. Visitors often live as storms, constantly reacting, constantly moving. The awakened live as the sky, observing, still, vast. But when storms enter your stillness, they shake your calm, hoping you'll engage. You must not. The power lies in remaining unmoved, watching their noise pass like clouds. And here's where motivation and mastery merge. When you protect your energy, you become unstoppable. The less you react to the world, the more the world begins to respond to you. That's the paradox of power. Silence becomes your weapon, and stillness becomes your strength. So if you've ever wondered why you dread small talk, why crowds exhaust you, or why you crave solitude, it's because your vibration has outgrown chaos. You've reached a level where energy matters more than words, and peace matters more than people. Before we move to the next section, the psychology of solitude, how the awakened protect their peace, take a deep breath and let this sink in. If you feel this truth inside you, like this video, and comment your own original quote about energy and protection. Something raw and honest. Maybe like, "I don't avoid energy, I manage it." Section 3. The Psychology of Solitude. How the awakened protect their peace. There's a point in spiritual awakening where solitude stops being optional. It becomes essential. Because once you've touched the stillness within you, everything loud begins to feel unnatural. Alan Watts once said, "When you realize that you live in a world where everything is connected, solitude is no longer isolation. It's communion." The spiritually awake understand this. They don't sit in solitude because they dislike others. They sit there because that's where truth whispers. That's where consciousness sharpens itself against the silence. Psychologically, solitude is the mirror of the mind. In the quiet, there's nowhere to hide from yourself. And that's why the average person avoids it. Visitors crave distraction because silence confronts them with their own emptiness. They seek company to escape self-awareness. But the awakened have already faced their shadows. They've walked through the fires of their own psyche and come out reborn. So while others seek noise to avoid themselves, the awakened seek silence to deepen themselves. This is the paradox. The spiritually awake are not antisocial. They're deeply selective. They've realized that peace is too expensive to trade for small talk, and presence is too precious to waste on shallow minds. When your inner world becomes rich, the outer one loses its grip. You stop needing attention, approval, or validation because solitude gives you everything applause never could: clarity, power, and self-respect. From a dark psychology perspective, solitude also removes manipulation. Because social environments are full of invisible games: dominance, conformity, comparison. In solitude, those disappear. You're free from energetic leeches, from emotional vampires, from the subtle ways people drain you to feed their insecurities. The awakened understand this deeply. That's why they stop attending every gathering, stop answering every message, stop explaining their peace. They protect their silence like kings protect their thrones. And this protection is not withdrawal, it's discipline. Stoics like Marcus Aurelius practiced retreating into the mind daily, not as escape, but as training. Every moment alone strengthens your internal fortress. Every hour of silence deepens your command over thought, emotion, and energy. That's why the awakened seem calm in chaos. They've practiced being alone with their own storms. They've learned that solitude is not loneliness, it's sovereignty. In the language of success, this becomes a strategy. When you can sit in silence without craving distraction, you've mastered one of the rarest forms of focus. Solitude becomes your workshop. Ideas are born there. Clarity sharpens there. Energy regenerates there. You become so rooted in self-awareness that external noise can no longer pull you off balance. You begin to own your mind instead of leasing it to the world. So the next time someone calls you distant, smile. Let them misunderstand, because they see isolation, but you feel alignment. They see detachment, but you're experiencing freedom. You've simply outgrown the constant need for noise. You've evolved past the hunger for attention. You've stepped into the quiet kingdom of self-mastery, where peace is not something you chase, it's something you protect. Before we move into the next section, the silent power of detachment, when you outgrow the need for company, take this moment to breathe deeply and listen to your own energy. If these words are awakening something inside you, hit that like button and comment your own original quote about solitude and self-mastery. Maybe something like, "I'm not lonely, I'm becoming whole." Section 4. The silent power of detachment. When you outgrow the need for company, there comes a stage in spiritual evolution when your silence begins to speak louder than any conversation ever could. You no longer crave to be understood. You no longer seek validation. You simply exist in alignment. This is the stage of detachment, and it's not coldness or arrogance. It's energetic purification. Alan Watts often said that detachment isn't about owning nothing. It's about nothing owning you. When you awaken, you stop letting other people's moods dictate your energy. Their opinions shape your reality, or their chaos invade your peace. You stop being emotionally available to drama. In dark psychology terms, this is power, pure and unshakable. Because emotional detachment makes you untouchable to manipulation. The more you detach from external validation, the less control the world has over you. This is why spiritually awake individuals often appear distant or hard to read. Not because they're cold, but because they're no longer controlled by emotional bait. They've learned that every reaction is a form of surrender, so they practice restraint, the art of watching without absorbing, of feeling without falling, of caring without clinging. Detachment is misunderstood by the unawakened. They think you're withdrawing. In reality, you're elevating. You no longer chase people who don't value depth. You no longer explain your silence to minds addicted to noise. You begin to see life as energy exchange. And not every person deserves your access. The awakened become like sacred temples. Not everyone can enter. Their time, their mind, their vibration. These become sacred resources. And only those who bring peace, not problems, are allowed in. But here's the beauty. When you detach, you don't lose compassion. You gain clarity. You stop trying to fix people who are committed to staying broken. You stop arguing with fools who enjoy confusion. You stop proving your worth because your worth no longer depends on being seen. You move from the external battlefield into the inner kingdom. You realize that the only thing worth mastering is your reaction. Because once you control that, no one can touch your peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The spiritually awake embody this truth. They move slowly, speak deliberately, and respond selectively. They don't fight every war. They choose silence as their sword. They don't attend every argument. They protect their energy like royalty guards a crown. This level of control creates an aura, an invisible gravity that draws respect without demanding it. That's the silent charisma of the awakened, power that whispers, and in this detachment, creativity thrives. When your mind isn't tangled in emotional noise, your intuition becomes razor-sharp. You begin to sense truth beneath words, energy beneath appearances, intention beneath action. You see people clearly, not through their smiles, but through their patterns. This is spiritual X-ray vision, a gift that only stillness can give. The more detached you become, the more you see. The less you chase, the more flows toward you. Because detachment is magnetic. It's the vibration of self-sufficiency, and that energy attracts everything that matches it. So the next time someone says, "You've changed," understand, you didn't change, you woke up. You simply stopped feeding illusions. You stopped confusing attention for connection. You stopped mistaking noise for meaning. You didn't become cold. You became conscious. Before we go into the final part, the unseen burden. Why the awakened retreat into the shadows. Take a second. If this message has resonated with you, hit that like button right now and comment your own original quote about detachment. Maybe something like, "My silence is my strength, not my weakness." Section 5. The unseen burden. Why the awakened retreat into the shadows. When you reach true spiritual awakening, the world begins to feel heavier. Not because it's darker than before, but because you finally see everything as it truly is. You feel the suffering behind smiles, the fear behind ambition, the emptiness behind constant noise. You no longer see people as bodies moving through space. You see their energy, their attachments, their pain, their projections. And suddenly, being around others isn't just social interaction, it's energetic overload. That's why the awakened often withdraw, not out of bitterness, but out of necessity. They've become aware of how easily energy can be drained, how subtle the world's demands can become, and how silence becomes medicine for a soul that sees too much. Alan Watts once said that the real secret of life is to be completely engaged with what you are doing in the here and now. But when you're truly awake, that engagement becomes sacred. You can't just be around people, you start feeling their frequency. Every word, every intention, every vibration either nourishes or depletes you. And when you've done the deep inner work, when you've purified your energy, faced your shadows, and reclaimed your peace, you begin to protect it like a treasure. Visitors, then, are not merely guests. They are energetic variables. And that's why the awakened are selective. They know that letting the wrong person into your space can undo months of inner work in a single conversation. This is where dark psychology meets spirituality. The more peaceful you become, the more chaotic energies are drawn to you unconsciously. People sense calm and mistake it for comfort. They sense wisdom and mistake it for therapy. But the spiritually awake are not here to fix everyone. They are here to be, to embody balance, to hold space, not to absorb pain. That's why they often go unseen. They understand that solitude is not isolation, it's spiritual hygiene. Just as your body needs rest, your soul needs silence. And in that silence, you reconnect with truth. Unfiltered, untainted, unbroken. Those who are spiritually asleep often misinterpret this withdrawal. They think the awakened are antisocial, aloof, or arrogant. But in reality, the awakened simply can't pretend anymore. They can't laugh at empty gossip or participate in pointless conflict. Their silence is their rebellion. Their solitude is their sanctuary. The awakened don't hate people. They simply love peace more. And that love demands boundaries. Here's a powerful success strategy most never realize. The quieter you become, the more you achieve. Because focus thrives in silence. Every distraction avoided is energy retained. Every boundary enforced is power reclaimed. The great creators, philosophers, and sages knew this. That's why they disappeared into stillness, not to escape life, but to see it clearly. They knew that growth demands withdrawal. Because when you step away from noise, you step closer to truth. And maybe that's the real message Alan Watts was trying to tell us all along. That awakening isn't about becoming special. It's about becoming real. The spiritually awake don't seek to impress. They seek to express something deeper. Authenticity. They live from essence, not ego. They let go of the need to perform and instead become presence itself. So if you find yourself preferring solitude lately, if you no longer enjoy meaningless chatter, if you'd rather sit in silence than explain your piece, congratulations, you're awakening. You're stepping into the realm of the few who finally see beyond illusion. Protect that peace. Guard your silence. And never apologize for choosing inner calm over outer chaos. Take a moment. If this message spoke to your soul, like this video, and comment your own original quote about awakening. Maybe something like, "My solitude isn't loneliness, it's alignment." Because your words might awaken someone else. And finally, if you haven't already, turn on notifications, because this journey doesn't end here. In the next exploration, we'll go even deeper into the art of silent strength, spiritual protection, and the dark psychology of peace. Stay awake, stay aware, and never forget, the quieter your soul becomes, the louder your spirit speaks.